There's a lot of talk right now about Joe Biden's legacy. As we discussed yesterday, his physician had to plead the fifth because apparently telling the truth about Joe Biden's health could lead you into criminal territory. That's fascinating. So that's a big part of his legacy that we're unpacking. But we're also learning really fast about women who rose to the highest levels of power under his watch, all because of him. I mean, two of them he hand selected, Kamala Harris and Ketanji Brown Jackson. And the third one really just sort of rode in on the coattails of his political popularity. Her name is Jasmine Crockett. All three of them are in the news right now, and all three of them will blow your mind. Just watch. Jesse Waters took up Kamala Harris as we're learning more revelations about her lamentable behavior and lack of intelligence during the 2024 presidential campaign, including a little factoid here revealed in the book that she doesn't know how to conference someone in on her phone. I'm serious.
And we're finding out Kamala was a bigger mess behind the scenes than on camera. When she called Trump to concede, she couldn't figure out how to use the phone. When Vice President Harris reached President Trump to concede, her aides had trouble merging her onto the call. The aides ended up holding two phones together on speaker so they could talk. Turns out Kamala also did an interview that was so bad it never aired. They 86'd it when she brought up the B word.
Hey, they emailed me.
They emailed, like an email from the
DNC.
Okay.
And they said, hey, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are really interested in being on your show. I said, that sounds cool.
What happened with Kamala?
Her take was really confusing and weird and not good. And so mutually agreed that we shouldn't publish it.
I see.
And I got lucky because I didn't want to be blamed for her losing.
Her take was that bad?
It was really, really bad. It was bacon as a spice. Bacon as a spice.
Bacon as a spice. It's hilarious, and we've got more here. As you can see, we're about to move on to Ketanji Brown Jackson, but I just want to name names and point things out. That dude's name is Kareem Rama, and I guess his podcast is called Subway Takes. He's obviously a liberal, and he was really relieved that he didn't have to run this episode of his interview because he didn't want to get blamed for her losing. Yeah, apparently Sunny Hosting gets that dubious distinction on the left for asking a simple question of Kamala Harris. Isn't kind of the buried lead in this story is that this guy is a new media podcast host, interviewed a woman running for president, and he agreed to not publish it because it made her look so bad? Can I just tell you, I promise that will never happen on this show. It's like everything they accuse conservative right-leaning media of doing is what exactly they are guilty of. They stage interviews, they script interviews, they edit interviews to make Kamala Harris look good, and they even spike an interview because they're afraid it's going to make her look so bad. And he's being celebrated for that. He's laughing about it right now. Where is his integrity? Where is it? I mean, I guess everybody's got a price. I don't know. If I interview a candidate and the campaign thinks it's so bad that they don't want me to run it and they cut me a big fat check, would it be worth the money? Hopefully I'll never have to make that choice, but as of now, I can promise you it ain't going to happen here. Choose your podcast wisely. All right, back to Jesse. Ketanji Brown Jackson, again, just like Kamala Harris, only attained power because Joe Biden decided this is the woman we need. We must have this woman. So without any other process, it all fell on Joe Biden's shoulders. So how'd that choice work out?
Is a spice. So we dodged Kamala, but there's one gift from Biden that keeps on giving. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who just sat down for a little interview with ABC News, and she sounds like Harris in a robe.
I think I'm aware that people are watching. They want to know how I'm going to perform in this job and in this environment. And so I'm doing my best work, as well as I can do, because I want people to see and know that I can do anything just like anyone else.
That person is a Supreme Court justice with a lifetime job. She was the best and the brightest we had She was the top of the list for Joe Biden. No doubt, no question. She was the best qualified, most intelligent, perfect person to have a lifetime job on the Supreme Court. That person that you just saw. And by the way, it gets worse.
Ketanji has one of the most important jobs in the country, deciding cases based on the Constitution. Too bad nobody told her, because she thinks she was put on the court to talk about her feelings.
What I feel that I've been privileged to do is use the writings that I do, the work that I do, to explain my views about the way our government does and should work, the way the court does and should work. I think the nice part about being on the court is that you have the opportunity, whether you're in the majority or in the dissent, to express your opinions.
Ketanji expresses her opinions so much, the other 8 justices want her to shut up.
It's funny to me how people focus on how much I talk at oral argument. And I was always this person on the bench. And so it's been a bit of an adjustment, because as a trial court judge, you have your own courtroom. So you can go on as long as you want. And so trying to make sure that my colleagues get to ask some questions has been a challenge for me. But I've enjoyed it. I really have.
They haven't. No wonder Ketanji speaks so much. She can't figure out what's going on.
I don't understand how we can do it on this record, but I guess I don't understand that given your argument. I guess I don't really understand it. I guess I don't understand. Am I mischaracterizing? Like, I don't understand where this idea of universal injunctions comes from. And that's the part that I don't understand.
Last week, the court decided a case 8-1. The one dissent, Jackson. Her dissent was so ridiculous that even Sotomayor had to tell her she didn't understand the case. I agree with Justice Jackson. Here, however, the plans themselves are not before this court.
It is bad. And the 2 things I want to expand on. First, on that idea that she talks more than anyone else on the Supreme Court. It's true, and it's actually not even close. In fact, it's embarrassingly stunning. Take a look at this. Alan Feldman of Empirical SCOTUS actually broke down the words each justice delivered during open arguments. This is in the first 8 arguments of their career on the Supreme Court. Look at all the way down at the bottom, quite possibly the wisest, most effective Supreme Court justice we have over the last several decades, Clarence Thomas. In his first 8 arguments that he sat through, he only uttered 96 words. But by the way, I remember back in the day, in the 90s, people were demonizing him. They were demeaning him. They were ridiculing him. They were saying that he was stupid because he didn't ask many questions during arguments. It's funny. Maybe it's me, but I think the person in the room who is soft-spoken and is a man of fewer words versus someone who just blithers on and on and on, I think it's easy to tell who's got the wisdom and the intelligence between those 2 people. And yeah, let's bring it all the way up to Ketanji Brown Jackson. 11,003 words uttered by Justice Jackson in her first 8 arguments. That's embarrassing. But I want to expand on one other thing here. You may have missed it. As you know, Supreme Court justices, part of their job is to deliver their legal opinion, and they call the document that they write based on how they voted in the case before them a legal opinion. And I'm afraid, I could be wrong, but I'm afraid Ms. Jackson believes that she's not actually supposed to deliver her legal opinion. She's supposed to deliver her personal opinion. I could be wrong, but you tell me. Take a listen to this answer. I'm going to expand it a little bit because Jesse Waters didn't show all of it.
Does the current state of American democracy concern you?
So I am actually heartened that people are focused on the court and the work that we're doing on the state of the government, Because again, as I mentioned, as a democracy, the people are supposed to be the rulers. The people are supposed to be leading in terms of the policies and the way in which our government operates.
That's not the system we have. I mean, there's two different kinds of democracies in the Western world, a direct democracy and a representative constitutional government that utilizes democracy to choose the representatives. We have the latter. And no, the people are not the rulers when it comes to terms of policy and how the government operates. That's not what we do. We elect our representatives to do that for us. And if we don't like the job they're doing, then we replace them. I'm terrified that I know more about our constitutional republic and the way we do things in this country than a Supreme Court justice does. And that's a pretty simple thing. But there's more. Let's get to the opinion part.
And so the more that people are engaged with our institutions, I think, the better. And so what I feel that I've been privileged to do is use the writings that I do, the work that I do, to explain my views about the way our government does and should work, the way the court does and should work. I think the nice part about being on the court is that you have the opportunity, whether you're in the majority or in the dissent, to express your opinions. You mentioned Justice Breyer. One of the things he used to say, sometimes people say, well, the court is so secretive. Nobody knows what goes on in the court. And he used to always say, I don't understand that. We are the only institution where people actually write their opinions when they vote. They tell you exactly what it is. And I just feel that I have a wonderful opportunity to tell people, in my opinions, how I feel about the issues.
But that's not what a Supreme Court justice does. How you feel about the issues? No one cares about how you feel about the issues. I don't care about how Clarence Thomas feels, or Justice Alito, or Sonia Sotomayor, or any of them. That's not what a legal opinion is. It's not about how you feel about the issue. It's the rationale that you used and the jurisprudence and court history that back up your legal opinion, not your personal opinion. She's worse than any of us thought. And it makes me think back to this historic moment during her confirmation hearing. We saw this famous exchange, and we just assumed that this was an insight into her radical left-wing gender ideology and political correctness, right? But actually, it revealed a little bit more.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
I can't.
You can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of the word woman is something you.
All right, so yeah, we all know she couldn't define woman, but that wasn't really delivering an insight into her radical gender ideology. It was delivering an insight into how stupid she is. And just a lack of basic understanding of, common sense and logic and reason. A couple of things that you'd like a Supreme Court justice to possess. Which brings us to Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is back on the media circuit again, delivering more interviews, and that means more little nuggets of insight into one of the leading lights right now on Capitol Hill. Here's a little bit.
A lot of my bills around fentanyl. I've done that with a number of, Republicans that have been like, oh no, like the border crisis, it's all the fentanyl and da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. She has nothing but disdain and ridicule for Republicans who actually care about fentanyl as it relates to the border crisis. Apparently, Jasmine Crockett thinks that it's worthy of being mocked if you actually worry about fentanyl crossing the border. That's not the real problem here. What an odious individual, but that's just the tip of the iceberg.
The violence doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction. Like, I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but like, even when we look at, and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore that took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters, right? As well as this most recent situation, they tried to flip it and say, oh, the leftists are, I'm like, this doesn't even make sense, right? But it's only like MAGA that does this.
So violence in this country right now, and I think she means political violence, is MAGA, and it's only MAGA. The 11 who were just arrested for ambushing a ICE agent and Border Patrol individuals, those were MAGA. The people who were lighting cars on fire and waving Mexican flags in Los Angeles during the riots over ICE raids, that was MAGA. And remarkably, the 2 assassination attempts of Donald Trump, those 2 guys were MAGA. Because you got to be real MAGA, like hardcore MAGA, like a true MAGA believer to want to assassinate Donald Trump. That's how you can prove you're really MAGA. This is considered intellectual, thoughtful, political discourse in the world of Jasmine Crockett. But of course, what do we expect? I mean, let's not forget, this is what Jasmine Crockett has now recently reiterated when it comes to President Biden's health. You'll remember yesterday there was a hearing of the Oversight Committee, which Jasmine Crockett sits on, that focused on what the president's physician knew or didn't know about the president's health and whether he lied about it. And Jasmine Crockett wanted everyone to understand that this whole thing was just a non-story.
Do you have concerns about the president's health and his mental acuity?
No.
None
No,
whatsoever.
I had none. Now, granted, I didn't see Joe Biden every single day, but I did have an opportunity to interact with the president. I never had a concern. If there's anyone that I am concerned about their mental acuity, it is the current occupant.
There you go. I mean, take that for what it's worth. I mean, if you want to judge her wisdom and her ability to discern a situation, just understand something, that with Joe Biden, she never had any question about his mental or physical abilities. It's Trump she's worried about. I think that speaks for itself. I do have some bad news, though, when it comes to Jasmine Crockett. I don't know how to take this. You know what? Let's just listen and then we'll sort of cope.
I will tell you that I actually have my expiration date in my mind for the House.
Oh, wow. You
And
got the exit strategy already there.
I do. And I've already been eyeing people to replace me.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you so much.
There you go. I mean, apparently we're not going to have Jasmine Crockett to kick around very much longer. She's already got her exit strategy from the House. Now, those are important words. That means she plans on holding another elected office, maybe the Senate, maybe governor of Texas, maybe mayor of a city in Texas, maybe president, maybe a cabinet secretary or something when a Democrat wins the White House. But Jasmine Crockett is already planning her exit strategy. And I don't know, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions here, but is she under the misconception that she's allowed to choose who becomes the new member of the House when she leaves? She is aware that there's an election that takes place, right? I'm already choosing my successor. What kind of job does she think she has? Yeah, don't worry, boss. I'll find my replacement before I leave. It's an election. I love the defenders of democracy who are always interested in hand-selecting Kamala Harris without an election and propping up Joe Biden and letting the auto pen sign executive orders and pardons, and then resigning from the House, but choosing your hand-picked successor, because these are the ones that care the most about democracy. You know, the ones who basically want to put people in place and not let you vote, because that's what democracy is all about, isn't it? Maybe we should ask Ketanji Brown Jackson about that. She seems to have a good handle on it. That's Biden's legacy for you. What a man.